So two techie brothers told me that XRP could hit $1,000, and they said it with a straight face. Now I thought they were nuts until I dug into their evidence, and let's just say I'm not laughing anymore. Last week, I'm scrolling my feed and I see this interview at the New York Stock Exchange. It's these two brothers, Dom and Phil Wok, who casually predicting XRP to $1,000 by 2030. Now, my eyebrows, they kind of hit the ceiling here. I'm used to some crazy crypto predictions. I've heard them a million times over. Usually, I just roll my eyes and move on, but these guys aren't your typical moon boys. They actually have a track record. Now, Dom and Phil co-founded a startup called EasyA, basically a Duolingo for blockchain developers. It helps people learn to build Web3 applications through bite-sized lessons. Not exactly household names, but in developer circles, they've got some clout. Now, over 1 million people have used their app to learn crypto coding. Yeah, 1 million. Now, they even have big backers from Silicon Valley. So, when these two speak at the New York Stock Exchange, people pay attention. There they were at the New York Stock Exchange of all places, talking crypto on the big stage, and Dom goes ahead and drops the bomb. I think XRP is heading to $1,000 by 2030. Now he said it, at least he said it was the first time that he's ever actually given a price target publicly. Bold enough, or bold in fact doesn't even begin to describe it, right? I half expected traders on the NYSE floor to spit out their coffee. But Dom said it with total confidence. Now, I'm a seasoned crypto guy. I've seen plenty of wild predictions. Remember when people were screaming Bitcoin to $1 million overnight? Well, or even those old XRP memes about it hitting $589 by next Tuesday. Yeah, I've kind of learned to take these things with a truckload of salt. So my gut reaction was, all right, what are these two smoking? A $1,000 XRP would mean trillions in market cap. It sounded absurd. But here's the twist. The Wok brothers actually backed up their bold claims with some pretty solid reasoning. They didn't just yell to the moon and call it a day. They laid out a case that got me really thinking. Could XRP at $1,000 be one of those crazy moonshots that might just have a path to reality? I did need to know more, so I just kept listening and then I started digging my own research. Now, the first big reason that they kind of pointed to was Ripple's groundwork for institutional adoption. Now, Dom talked about how Ripple has been quietly securing key licenses around the world, kind of like collecting Pokemon badges, but for the financial compliance. Now, Ripple, they want to be, or at least they want to be, the go-to platform for big banks and institutions when they finally jump into crypto in a serious way. And apparently, Ripple's been busy launching new tools too. Right? One that stood out is something called RLUSD. In plain English, it's a US dollar stablecoin running on the XRP ledger. So think of it like Ripple's own digital dollar. So why is that a big deal? Well, if you have a regulated stablecoin and all the legal green lights, you're basically rolling out the red carpet for traditional finance to come on in. When banks and mega funds decide to wade into crypto, Ripple can say, hey, we've got the infrastructure, the legal okay, and even a digital dollar ready for you. And XRP would be right there at the core of those transactions, moving money across borders in seconds with tiny fees. That's always been XRP's thing, and it could become its killer app if traditional finance really embraces it. Dom also highlighted Ripple's acquisition of the firm called Hidden Road. Now, Hidden Road is a prime broker, basically a company that makes trading large amounts of assets easy and efficient for the big players. So Ripple buying Hidden Road shows that they're actually aiming for smooth at least out the kind of process for institutions to use XRP for things like trade settlements and cross-border payments. So imagine a hedge fund in New York and a bank in London clearing a huge transaction instantly using XRP. Now, instead of waiting days for wire transfers or paying a bunch of middlemen, that is kind of the dream scenario, and Ripple's essentially laying down the train tracks now so that the bullet train, that's the institutions, can ride on it later. Now, all this groundwork, it tells me one thing. Ripple is playing the long game with XRP. They're not just hyping up a coin. They're building an ecosystem that could support massive value flows. If even a fraction of global finance starts using XRP as a bridge currency or liquidity tool, the demand could be astronomical. And that, of course, could send the price way up. Now, the second major factors that the brothers talked about is the XRP ledger's DeFi potential. If you've been around crypto, you know that Ethereum has won the DeFi crown so far. Ethereum had its kind of big DeFi summer in 2020, when all those yield farms and decentralized exchanges blew up. Right? That surge pushed Ether's market cap into hundreds of billions of dollars. Other networks like Binance Smart Chain and Polygon had their moments in the DeFi sun too. But XRP, the ledger, or the XRP ledger, never really had a DeFi breakthrough. And it's because it's kind of always been known as the payment king, not as a DeFi playground. Bill basically said, look, Ethereum's had its run, but XRP and its cousin Stellar hasn't had that run yet. And you know what? He's kind of right. XRP's market cap has hit about, a little north of $150 billion at peaks, just on payments and speculation. That's without a bustling DeFi ecosystem. So what happens if, or when, XRPL gets its own DeFi boom? Just imagine decentralized exchanges, lending platforms, liquidity pools, maybe even NFT marketplaces, all thriving on the XRP ledger. If developers start launching the next Uniswap or Aave on the XRPL, well, it could attract tons of users and capital. And, well, demand for XRP would skyrocket. And here's where EasyA, Dom and Phil's company, comes back in. EasyA is actively helping make this happen. They've got that massive community of developers, over 1 million, and they're pointing them towards the XRP ledger, teaching them, encouraging them, and maybe even incentivizing them to build cool new apps on XRPL. When they're not just cheering from the sidelines here, right? They're actually in the trenches preparing the army of developers for this DeFi wave that they see coming. It's kind of like they're settling, or at least maybe even setting the stage for XRP's DeFi rock concert that hasn't happened yet. And so, by this stage, the brothers have hit me with two big arguments. One, Ripple is paving the way for institutions to adopt XRP en masse. And two, the XRP ledger is a powder, at least a powder keg of untapped DeFi potential, just about to be ignited. And then Dom casually drops the $1,000 target by 2030 bomb. And he said it like it was almost inevitable in his mind, right? You can cue to a Thanos meme if you want. Meanwhile, of course, I'm at home here nearly kind of spitting out my drink. Part of me is shouting, there's no way, that's pure hopium. But the other part of me is whispering, wait, what if they're right? It was a weird feeling, like someone tells you a massive secret that could either be a crazy conspiracy or the truth that changes absolutely everything. And I felt both skeptical and excited. I mean, $1,000 XRP would probably make headlines around the world. It sounds like clickbait even when it's coming from serious people. Now, before I go any further down this rabbit hole, I need to slam the brakes for just a second, and I need to level with you. Some real talk. And this might just shock you, but I'm not a financial advisor, and nothing in this video is financial advice. Cryptocurrencies are highly volatile, and you could lose all of the money that you invest. Always do your own research and consult a qualified professional. After all, your investments are entirely your responsibility, and you should know that nothing is ever guaranteed when it comes to investing. Neither I, this channel, nor YouTube are liable for any losses, and this video today is for entertainment and educational purposes only. Alright, we had to get that out there because when you start throwing around 4-figure price targets, people can lose their collective minds. Let's stay grounded and let's stay rational. Now, let's talk about what's actually happening in the XRP ecosystem that makes this $1,000 prediction sound a bit less like fantasy and more like a bold possibility. Because after hearing Dom and Phil, I went digging for evidence and I found a bunch of developments that blew my mind. Circle launched USDC on the XRP ledger. Now that means that if you're an XRP ledger user or developer, you now have a trusted dollar-pegged token native to XRPL. Now this basically injects a ton of liquidity and utility into XRPL. It's like XRPL just got a major DeFi building block that it was potentially missing. Also, the XRP ledger got an upgrade that enabled automatic market maker pools natively. So in normal English, basically the XRPL can now have its own decentralized exchange pools and yield farming, similar to how Uniswap works on Ethereum. This means that anyone can now provide liquidity and earn yields on XRPL itself. Before, it didn't support that kind of functionality, but now it does. Ripple's developer team, RippleX, is also building a native lending platform on XRPL, and it's supposed to support under-collateralized loans. And that's a big leap because most DeFi loans today are over-collateralized. So if RippleX, that is, kind of pulls this off, it could actually open the doors to a whole new wave of borrowing, especially for small businesses or individuals who can't lock up tons of capital. And then you've got Cardano's founder teasing that their privacy-focused sidechain, Midnight, could plug into XRPL and bring confidential DeFi to the ecosystem. That's pretty wild, right? That's kind of like Batman and Iron Man teaming up from two totally different universes. Then you got Flare Networks launched the XRPFi, giving XRP holders access to lending, staking, and borrowing. That's alone is massive, right? Then they're working on an XRPL-backed stablecoin too, which could potentially tie up even more XRP in DeFi pools. Then we have THORChain is adding XRP to its mainnet, so you can swap XRP directly with other major crypto assets. No centralized exchange needed. That's cross-chain utility, plain and simple. And these brothers aren't alone in their $1,000 forecast. Other analysts like Matthew Brennan and Barry C have made very similar predictions, although they gave longer timeframes. Still, when multiple credible people are even floating the idea, it's probably worth paying attention. Let's put it all together then, right? Ripple going after institutional finance. The XRPL is finally getting serious DeFi features. Developers are flooding in. Cross-chain bridges are forming. Stablecoins are launching. And the community? It's waking up. Now, I do think that XRP will hit do I think that XRP will hit $1,000 by 2030? I still think that's a moonshot, but for the first time, I don't think it's completely crazy, right? I think there's a real, albeit very narrow, path that could, and if that wasn't, I should say, enough for me to kind of increase my bag just a little bit, right? I grabbed some from Kraken Pro, which is what I use for most of my trading these days. And yeah, the link in the description, that is an affiliate link. So if you do use it, it does support the channel here. But more importantly, I talked all of this stuff through with our people in our free educational Discord server. The link for that is also down below. Right, we debate stuff like this all the time. Some of us are skeptics, some of us are true believers, but we keep each other pretty sharp. And if you're not in there yet, you need to hop in. It's free. scary, and honestly, it's kind of where a lot of my best crypto conversations happen. And so yeah, I started off by rolling my eyes at the $1,000 XRP prediction, but now I'm watching closely, I'm learning, I'm building, and I'm open to the possibility that we haven't seen anything just yet. And for you guys, you should probably hit the subscribe and join me in that next video adventure.